Hey there, Sonia here with another beautiful message. Hopefully, this can inspire someone's faith today. But I wanted to share it. I got out of church, the word is still with me, and I wanted to share my perspective. So today we're going to take a dive into Matthew 14. But before we go there, how many of y'all know that faith comes by hearing and believing? 2 Corinthians says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." Let's keep that in the back of our mind as I go over the story here, right? So Matthew 14:28 sees Peter here asking Jesus to confirm something to him. Jesus was walking on water and Peter had said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water," right? Jesus responded to him and said, "Come." Then Peter got out of his boat and walked on water. As he came towards Jesus, when he saw the wind, he became afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Jesus said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, I just wanted to get some points out here to you for this little passage here we just read. There's so many nuggets in there. Notice, Peter inquired of the Lord. He said, "Lord, if it's you." He asked him to confirm it by telling him to come on the water. And Jesus confirmed and also gave him permission, right? Peter stepped outside his boat. He stepped outside the worldly security he had. You're in the middle of the sea. You are asking someone to step outside the boat. How many of us would have stepped outside the boat? I'm not judging Peter here because I probably wouldn't. Notice the other 11 disciples did not ask this question. Peter was the only one. He the real MVP here. Peter stepped outside his worldly security or his insecurity. Could be either way. And he started out with faith, right? He started to walk towards Jesus. However, he allowed at some point what he felt or see, the wind, right, to cancel out who he knew and almost drowned. Now, mind you, you can't see wind, right? You can feel it. You can feel a strong wind, but you can't see it. Now, here is Peter out here on this boat, coming off the boat, walking towards Jesus, whom he can see that's right in front of him. And he's walking towards him, but then he allowed the wind, something that he can't see, but what he can feel, to cancel out who he could see and what he knew. And he started to drown. However, notice he called out to Jesus in the middle of his crisis. So he still had a little faith in him. He said, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus responded and reached out his hands and rescued him. Now I want you to pay attention to two things here. When he said, "Lord, save me," he still had an ounce of faith, right? And then Jesus immediately responded. However, notice that he wouldn't have responded had Peter not cried out. So a lot of times, God is waiting for us to invite him into our situation. Despite we took it on thinking that, I got this, God put me in this position. But sometimes it's going to require you calling out or crying out to God in the middle of your situation, your crisis, and he will step in, right? So Jesus stepped in and immediately saved him and scolded him and said, "You of little faith." Notice he didn't say Peter didn't have faith. He said, "You of little faith." So whatever big faith Peter had when he stepped out of the boat, it evaporated with the wind. The wind took his faith. Let's just say that. The wind took his faith here. However, Jesus still saved. He responded, he saved, he scolded, and he still redeemed him. Now, and brought him back to safety. Now, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you may at some point stepped out on faith, moving to a new town, stepped out on faith despite the doctor's report, stepped out on faith despite what the business looked like, stepped out on faith despite what your relationship options look like, and you're believing God, and you have been believing God for something. However, somewhere in between that, you saw something, the economy crashing, you lost your job, your relationship went down the drain, or you moved to a new city and it's not working out. Somewhere in between that, the wind has been knocked out of you. And because the wind has been knocked out of you, you begin to fear. You start to doubt. But in the middle of that, you are still allowing yourself to go forward. But I want you to pay attention to what Peter did here. Despite the wind being knocked out of him, his faith being knocked out of him, he still cried out. And his crying out invited Jesus into the situation. And Jesus came in, stepped on the scene, and changed the scene. Now, I don't know what your situation is right now, but I'm imploring you, invite Jesus into it. Cry out to him and allow him, give him permission to work on your behalf. You've been strong for so long. You've been doing you for so long. You've been going your own way for so long. But today, God is saying, if you just invite me into the midst of your crisis, I can show you who Christ is. If you just invite me in the middle of your pain, I can show you who the true healer, the true physician is. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been where Peter's been. And I've been where I allowed what I saw to cancel out who I knew. But today, I'm at that point where what I see, despite what I see, doesn't cancel who I know. The great Omega, the great Almighty, the Father of fathers. He will never leave me nor forsake me. And he will never leave you nor forsake you as well. And today, if any other day, I'm inviting you, I'm imploring you, invite him in. He says, we do not walk by faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. So he tells you, he's telling you, is a reminder, and it's right throughout the scriptures. Do not allow what you see cancel out who you know. I repeat, do not allow what you see cancel out who you know. There's another story there, I remember, with the Israelites, I believe. No, it wasn't the Israelites, but God's response to them was, you will not see the wind, you will not see the rain, but surely as the Lord lives, I will deliver you and your people. Your horses will be fed, you will be fed, you will be replenished. Though you won't see it, do not allow what you don't see to cancel out who God is. So I hope this message encourages someone today. Walk in your faith. Keep going, but invite him in the midst of it. In the areas that you don't know the answer, he does. In the areas that you don't feel sure, he's a sure God. In the areas that you don't feel God, you don't feel strong, he's our redeemer, our strengthener. He replenishes, he restores. And you are not far from him. Just a whisper, just a prayer away. You don't need a phone line for him. He's just a prayer away. You don't need an app to get to him. He's just a prayer away. Now, I hope this blesses you and it changes your perspective. And I hope y'all have a